We'll do it live. We'll do it live. Good morning, Vietnam. Just chilling this morning, having a nice kind of chocolatey cup of coffee with some organic. I think it's called cacao. Is that what it's called? It's really good. Really adds a nice flavor to the coffee. And just checking out the markets. We've got Bitcoin, which I don't own any Bitcoin, up. Went up like $8,500 in 5 days. That's a lot. So people are very bullish on Bitcoin right now. Obviously, the election of Trump has been bullish for Bitcoin. We know that, and the election of Trump has been bullish for. I think it was one of the market. I don't really know what. I think they call it the Dow or something that went way up. I don't follow that. And the dollar has, I think the dollar was going kind of strong last week and then kind of like maybe took a little tiny dip. Gold for the last 5 years has been going up. How much? Geez. Well, it was up almost like 36% in the last year. And in the last 5 years, I think it was up. I don't know. Let's take a look. Gold up. Gold price. Gold in the last 5 years up 84%. That's a lot. So over the last 5 years, since just about right before, well, that's when Trump got in. 5 years. No. Right when Trump got out, gold shot up 84%. What happened in that time was the lockdowns, which happened in December. That was under Trump. So it was actually what really boosted the price of gold was the war with Russia. That's what really boosted the price of gold. The COVID stuff had Bitcoin soaring, and then it came down a little bit. And the lockdowns didn't seem to affect gold too much until the COVID money came out, and then we got a big run up in gold. Actually, it was the thing that blew up gold was the election of right before Biden came in. Gold took off and went to hit just about at 2,000, and then kind of cruised along for 3 years. Went sideways, just went down sideways and down for 3 years, and then the war with Russia in Ukraine, the invasion of eastern Ukraine by the Russians caused gold to just begin soaring, and it went up about 40% or 50% in that time. And then Trump got elected on November 5th, and gold took a small dip and is kind of down a little bit, and people are looking at it and seeing which way it's going to go. I don't know which way it's going to go, and I can't predict which way it's going to go, but if I could predict anything, I would hope that the dollar gets stronger at this point, because otherwise we'll just lose the dollar, which is stupid. I think it'd be nice to, people are saying because like I'm all in on the dollar right now, like that's what we have is dollars, right? And so right now I think we should go all in on it, since if we're going to control the government, then grab all of it, right? Grab the government, take control of it, and use the existing channels and the existing established systems to forward our own goals. So they're all just sitting there waiting for us to take over, take it over, take over the dollar, take over all of it. And so one way for the dollar to really make a comeback is is if the Russians are able to use dollars again. Because what's happened is ever since Biden took office and they've got all these different sanctions and stuff on Russia, is they said, okay, so we're going to make new deals with the Arabs and the Chinese and all these other people to just stop using dollars, and that's really bad for America. And as Trump said, it's basically like losing a war, is losing the dollar. So now the interesting thing, the reason why I'm all in on dollars right now is because if Trump successfully implements his tariffs, what you could see happen with the dollar, even with our debt and everything, because one of the ways that the U.S. government props up this entire system is through loans and taking on more debt and taking on more debt and taking on more debt, right? But if we already have $32 trillion in circulation, right? It's already circulating in the environment, not just here in America, but globally. You've got that much money, or let's say how much ever it is, let's call it 40 trillion. Let's say you have $40 trillion circulating around the globe. And you're saying, but we have all this debt. How do we make more? It's going to cause inflation. Well, here's what you do. You put tariffs on all the goods coming into the US, right? You put high tariffs on all the goods coming into the US. What does that do? That means that the US government doesn't have to borrow so much money. It doesn't have to borrow so much money. Well, I mean, it's still, I mean, it still has to borrow some, let's say. But let's say the amount it's having to borrow goes way down. And the amount of money it's collecting through tariffs, which is a tax on the rest of the world, goes up. And you could even just get rid of the, so here's what you could do. You get rid of the income tax. You don't need an income tax. That whole system's whatever. We're not going to go into that. But you don't need a federal income tax. In fact, it doesn't even make sense to have a federal income tax, because the federal government is supposed to deal with the states, not with individuals, right? You have this big, powerful entity, this empire, and based in Washington, D.C., and they're calling you on the phone to talk about your income. See, it doesn't make sense, right? A federal government like that is supposed to do business with states. They're supposed to be in charge of the state, so they would call the governor and say, "Where's my money?" to the governor, right? A real government. This is what a real government would do. It would call the governor and say, "Where's our money?" And it would also deal with other governments around the world and says, "Hey, where's our money?" It wouldn't call you on the phone. You're like some guy working at Del Taco. You're some guy working at McDonald's, or some guy working as a construction, and they're calling you, "Hey, where's my money?" Like you're slaving away over a burger fryer, and you got some guy from the some guy at the IRS calling you, asking you, where's my money? It's like, that doesn't make any sense, right? It just doesn't make any sense. So the sensible thing to do would not to be taxing people flipping burgers around America or working at Walmart, right? That's like stupid. The smart thing to do and the sensible thing to do would be to tax the other governments around the world that want to send goods into the country and make money off of us. They want to make money off of us, right? These other countries do. So we tax them. The federal government says, okay, you can ship your goods in here, and you're going to pay us a tax that we're going to use to run our government, right? That's what you're supposed to do, right? So let's say you've got $40 trillion in circulation around the world, right? So you put tariffs on goods coming in. So now you have a whole revenue stream coming in from, and the revenue stream, instead of coming in from a guy working at Walmart or a lady that works at a beauty salon, it's or like a bartender or somebody that's waiting tables, or a busser or a dishwasher. Instead of the money coming in from them, or if you want to talk about the rich people, you got the basketball players and the CEOs of these corporations that are operating in America, right? They should be okay. So let's talk about the big money within America. They should be paying taxes because they're a corporation. Once you incorporate with a state, now you pay the state a percentage, right? The state government, because you're running a big massive commercial enterprise, right? So that means the state government, the governor, the governor's office, and the secretary of state, that's who you're answering to. If you're incorporated, if you have a corporation in a state, you're operating a corporation in a state, you then should answer to the governor. The governor answers to the president, and the revenue goes from the state governor to the president. So the governor taxes the corporations. So whoever registers a corporation in that state, then they pay taxes to the state. That's the governor. Why would they pay taxes to the federal? They don't. That still doesn't make sense, right? The state needs money, so the corporations in the state would pay taxes to the state. Then because that would produce the income for the state. Now the state's generating lots of income, right? And so they would then, and it shouldn't even. I don't believe it should be in property taxes or anything. They don't need property taxes. They just tax the corporations operating the state. That goes to the federal government. And then the state government. And then you have all these state governments getting income, right, from the corporations. And then a percentage of that would go to the federal government, which administers the law, and the state courts. The federal courts, the federal court system, right? So that's the job of the job of the government is to create and enforce laws and to do jurisprudence, which is to make judgments over the law in disputes in the law. So they have courts. They have federal courts in the states. So that's how it's supposed to work, by the way. Now, the other source of income for the federal government would be other governments around the world, because of course we have to have defense and we have to have trade with other countries. And so that's where the federal government would make its money. It would make its money on trade with other governments, as well as administering the courts in the states. It doesn't really have anything else to do. That's what it's supposed to do. That's why they've been trying to come up with different ways of making money. They've been dreaming up new ways to make money. But this is how they're supposed to be doing it. So now, as far as the debt goes, if you've got, let's say, $40 trillion around the world, and you have to finance the U.S. debt, and you have to finance the U.S. federal government, well, if you're putting tariffs on and the money's flowing in from around the world, what does that do? How does that strengthen the dollar? Number one, now all these governments, China, Russia, European Union, South Asia, now they all need dollars. They all need dollars to pay their tariffs. They have to pay them in dollars. So now all this excess money that's causing the inflation that's all over the world, right? That's inflated, and it was spread all over the world, and it's being held in these bank accounts all over the world, to the tune of hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars that's sitting around the rest of the world. Well, they have to pay their tariffs to the United States because they're doing business with the United States. So in order to do business, they got to pay the tariff. So now there's this huge revenue stream of all this money from around the world flowing back to the federal government, paying off, that's financing the federal government and servicing the debt. So instead of you and me having to come up, or some guy that works all day as a house painter, instead of him having to come up with money to pay back all these ridiculous programs that were invented by the federal government that doesn't do anything for him. Now all that money's just flowing back from all these governments around the world, and that's paying off the debt, right? So the debt's getting paid off. And now it's freeing up the domestic population that doesn't have to worry about paying these high taxes. So the population is more money. That means the workers, all the workers around America, all the people that get up and go to work all day, every day, right? Suddenly they don't have to. Suddenly you're 18 to 20 or 30 years old. You don't have to work 2 or 3 jobs to rent a room in some shitty apartment somewhere. Or you know what I mean? Now you can afford things. Now you can buy a place to have a place to live and have some furniture and start a family, right? It just makes everything easier. And there's money available to buy things. Also, and so the money's coming back in, pouring back in, but it's not pouring back in because nobody wants it. For instance, these other governments aren't just dumping their dollars and taking something else. The money's coming in, but they still need more. So let's say China wants to do business with the U.S. They've got to pay these tariffs, so they're sending us all this money to do business here. But at the same time, they need the U.S. dollar, so they want more of them, so that they can keep, so that they can run their own business overseas. So automatically that creates a need for the U.S. dollar, and it also depletes the debt. It covers the debt. It reduces the debt. It's like the perfect solution. It solves the problem, and it also frees up the domestic population. And people say, "Oh, well, that'll just mean Americans are going to go pay for it when they buy their cheap Chinese crap at Walmart." I don't shop at Walmart anyway. I don't care. Right. I'd rather have just an easier life than cheap Chinese crap. So I don't know what you're talking about. We have farmland all over you think we need, the Chinese to come in and like take over our farms, whatever. I mean, the whole thing is like so screwed up. So it'll be much better that way. And so because this is Donald Trump's plan, this is very good for the US dollar. And I'm all in on dollars. So right now, when people start saying we need to end the Fed, I'm like, whoa, 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 slow down there, buddy. Don't end it yet. And so as far as ending the Fed goes, because the people who founded the Federal Reserve and run the Federal Reserve, the big bankers that are behind Powell and these other people at the Federal Reserve, they are the problem. They are the problem. They've been the problem this whole time. They're the ones that started World War I and killed hundreds of thousands of people, so that and to finance the debt. You got to figure who makes the money on a war. People that make medical supplies, people that make military supplies, right? So pharmaceuticals, medical supplies, military hardware, and yeah. So you look at who the big companies are. It's weapons companies, pharmaceutical companies, and banks, right? Well, they've been the problem. They've been killing off our populations with wars, and they just can't get enough of it. When they don't have a war to kill you with, they'll just come up with some dangerous drugs to kill you off with. So they are the problem. And so, but they have a system set up which we don't need, which we don't need to just like replace the mechanical parts. We just need to replace the individuals, get rid of them, and then we run it. We run it for our own benefit. Right? They're running it for their own benefit. Now we just run it for our own benefit. That's all you have to do. You just replace it, and then make sure that you set policies through law, through the Congress, that maintain the proper order and who's in charge of all this. If it's doing business with the Treasury and this, the president has to have an important role in that. But we don't have to go into all the specifics on how they're going to do it. But that's basically what needs to be done. They need to nationalize the Federal Reserve so that it's not independent. Like, that's the funny thing. When Trump was elected the first time, remember how they were screaming about independence? The FBI and the DOJ are always screaming about how these are organizations which must remain independent of the presidency. No, they're not. That the whole point of electing a president is to put them in charge of these organizations. The FBI is a division of the executive branch of the government, and that's why you elect a president. That's why the people elect a president. or the governors should elect the president. However, you're going to do it. Personally, I think, I think that originally, you had the Congress and you had the states, and the states would elect a president. And so anyway, we're gonna have to go into all that. But the whole purpose of electing a president is to put someone in charge of that branch of government called the executive. And under the executive is the U.S. Treasury Department and the FBI and and everything, and the Department of Justice. So when they say they're independent of the president, which they've been saying loud and clear, not just when Trump got in, but before that, that means there's been a coup. So this coup happened long before Trump. It happened when they started saying that they were independent of the presidency. When the people in Washington, D.C. that were involved in the FBI and the DOJ started saying that they were independent of the office of the presidency, that's when the coup started. So that was like before Trump, before Clinton, before Obama, before Bush, probably before Reagan, probably around the time of JFK, possibly earlier, probably before JFK. That's when those departments started to say they were independent of the presidency. And how far back did that go? It probably went back to the Federal Reserve, because that's when they started to say they were independent. This is an independent organization. It's not. In other words, I believe that's the point. So I would say it probably started in 1913 when they founded the Federal Reserve. They started they organization that was going to be independent of the U.S. government, and it was set in stone in the law of the Congress. So the Congress really invented it, and I guess the Congress could take it away too. So, but yeah, so that's the problem. You can't have divisions of the executive branch that are independent of the executive the elected executive leadership. That's like the Pentagon trying to say it's independent of the president. We don't answer to the president. That's the whole thing. That's what the FBI's been saying. That's what the DOJ's been saying. Anyone who says that should be arrested. Anyone in the FBI and DOJ who works in the FBI or works in the Department of Justice who says that they're independent of the president should be arrested as being part of some conspiracy against the United States. They should be arrested for conspiracy against the United States. So anyway, what does that have to do with the US dollar? Well, because they're the ones that create this whole I'm independent group are the ones that set in stone this whole thing that's been going for this whole time, that's really undermined Western civilization and caused all the problems with our economic system and led us to a hellhole that we had to reverse by the election of Donald Trump. And hopefully he's going to pull us out of it. And having a currency that we can all depend on is an important thing to have. So people have been ditching the dollar. I was ditching the dollar. I was all out of the dollar. I didn't get rid of them fast enough before. And now I'm looking at the dollar as, hey, let's go all in on the dollar. And I hope I'm right. So I'm not ready to end the Fed just yet. But we do need to end the people that we don't like that are in the Fed or the banks. We need to nationalize the Fed. And if the Fed is going to be doing business with the Treasury, we got to figure out what the Fed really is. Is it part of the Treasury Department? Where is it in the structure of government? Who does it answer to? It's got to answer to us. It's not. There's no such thing as independent, right? There's no such thing as independent from our system of government. If you're independent of our system of government, then you're saying that you're your own government. Well, okay, who invented this government? Where did it come from? Well, I can tell you where it came from. It came from the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, and they're of course associated with banking cartels that came from Europe, and So yeah, okay. So, but we're the American government. We're different. We have our own system. Our system is based on Benjamin Franklin and George Washington, and I guess Hamilton was a big pusher of a central bank. And Andrew Jackson said no, but we're not going to give them the history of that. We need to find out we're smart enough where we can find out exactly how we want to run this thing and just run it. So the solution to these market problems, like I said, is Trump's tariffs generate tremendous amounts of income that'll flow back into the United States, free up domestic tax burdens, fill the gaps on programs that are unpaid for that were what they call the deficit, which is we're going to have to pay this, but the money isn't in the treasury. So yeah, I see what's going to happen in 4 years. America could be just loaded with surpluses of cash, low taxes, and the IRS, as far as a revenue collection agency, should not even be dealing with individual Americans, citizens at all. Like it shouldn't. There's no reason for a federal government to call an individual. That is so dumb. It doesn't make sense. Like because first of all, you're worried about, like, there's a guy, let's say a guy who works at Walmart and he makes whatever an hour, and he's running a lady who was running a cash register. Like, she has to cover the debts of the federal government? That doesn't make any sense. She works at Walmart. There should be she shouldn't be paying any taxes to the federal government. She maybe, when she goes to buy something, there's some sales taxes that go to her community. See? You got sales taxes, right? So you live in a town, you live in a small town, and you work at a Walmart, let's say. You shouldn't be there. You as an individual, the Walmart, because it's a corporation, should pay taxes to the state and to the county or the city, or all three, or whatever, right? But you as an individual shouldn't. That should be covered by the corporation. The corporation covers that because that's the agreement. You as an individual should be just going around collecting your money for the corporation you work at, and then you go shopping in town, and they're making money in town off having the corporation there. Now everyone in town's making some money, and the other businesses are doing well, and a percentage of that goes to pay for the town's government to maintain the town, and that's how the town would collect income, and not off this federal government. The money stays locally, and it builds up the grassroots communities around America. And then everybody's got money, and everyone's got money to live, and it's not a big deal. You don't have to like spend 30 years in public education to hopefully one day make enough money to rent an apartment. Because that's how it is now. That's how it is now. You want to go to college and you want to go to university so you can get a good job so that you can rent an apartment next to the freeway. Because that's all you can afford. You can afford a shoebox apartment next to the freeway with your university degree, right? That's stupid. That's stupid. Don't do that. Don't do that. All right. So, gosh. So anyway, what else is happening in the news is that Arizona is still trying to cheat, which means they're in a lot of trouble. Trump has been making some proclamations about what he's going to do when he becomes the president, and they all sound really good. He's really hitting it hard on going against these people who have been attacking free speech over the internet. Because why did he win? Because there was more free speech, particularly on X, Twitter. So because we're allowed to talk, we had a change in government. And that's what they've been trying to prevent. They've been trying to shut down the dialogue so that there couldn't be a change in government. And so now that Elon has X and there's been more free speech, now we've got a change in government, and it's more American because Americans are allowed to talk. When you have systems and of people shutting down the communication lines of the American people, and the European people and the British people. That's called war. See, when you're at war with someone, the first thing you do is you cut their communication lines and you don't allow them to talk because you want to cut off their communication lines because you're at war with them and you're trying to kill them, right? That's what a war is. A war isn't just shooting them; it's cutting their communication lines so they can't talk to each other while they're being shot at. That's what's been happening in America for, geez, since the 1960s, at least, maybe earlier. But since the 1960s, that they've been attacking Americans, preventing us from talking while they take us out. And the internet helped reverse that big time, big time, big time. The internet's been bad for what you call progressivism, which is an invention of Republicans, actually. Because look at what's happened since the internet came out. You know who's behind that? Me, and about millions of other people like me have been behind the destruction of progressivism. So yeah, so I'm looking at this map, right? Of Trump wins. Arizona hasn't counted. Arizona hasn't confirmed its final vote tallies. Why? Because it's still trying to cheat. So they're probably trying to get rid of Kari Lake, which is what most people are suggesting, and it's what I believe. And the thing about Arizona is they're making hopefully a huge mistake because they're trying to cheat, and then they're going to get caught, and then they're all going to go to jail, and then they're going to go to prison, and that's good. They need to go to prison for trying to rip us all off. Rip us off, go to prison. That's how this works now. This is the new era. This is the golden age. Criminals go to prison. In the golden age, the criminals go to prison, and all of us law-abiding people are free. See, that's called the golden age. That's the golden age that Trump is talking about, where the criminals are in prison, and all of the loyal citizens who love truth and justice, they're all free. It's the exact opposite of progressivism. So, yeah, that's what's happening. Britain First is reporting Islamist demands that all food in London must be halal. This is nuts. We need to turn the tables and boycott all restaurants that serve halal. Yeah. There shouldn't be any. See, Britain. This is the British people are the Britons are the word Britain is a name that the Romans used for the people that lived there. That was the name of the race of the people. They were called the Britons, and they were a Celtic people. They were white Celtic race of people called the Britons. That's who the British are. There's no one else is British except for the Britons. Why have they been racially, ethnically cleansed? Why is Britain being ethnically cleansed? See, that's a problem that needs to be resolved. And how do we resolve that problem? We can't talk about that on right now because I don't know, might be offensive to people. But it needs to be done peacefully and orderly and happily and joyfully. However you're going to do it, it needs to be done peacefully and humanely. But it needs to be done because the whole situation over there has been a program of ethnic cleansing against the Britons and against the English and the Scots and the Welsh and the Irish, and it needs to stop. And it needs to be reversed. Who should be the Senate Majority Leader? I'm thinking Tommy Tuberville would be good. Mike Lee would be okay. Rand Paul would be okay, actually. Ted Cruz would be fine. I don't know about this Rick Scott guy. I would say no to that idiot. Here's Trump. Free speech.
We don't have a free country. It's as simple as that. If this most fundamental right is allowed to perish, then the rest of our rights and liberties will topple just like dominoes, one by one. They'll go down. That's why today I'm announcing my plan to shatter the left wing censorship regime and to reclaim the right to free speech for all Americans. And reclaim is a very important word in this case because they've taken it away. In recent weeks, bombshell reports have confirmed that a sinister group of deep state bureaucrats, Silicon Valley tyrants, left-wing activists, and depraved corporate news media have been conspiring to manipulate and silence
We
the
finally
American
have a
people.
president.
They have collaborated to suppress vital information on everything from elections to public health. The censorship cartel must be dismantled and destroyed, and it must happen immediately.
That's right.
And
We're the
here's my
Americans,
plan.
dude.
First,
We're the
within
Americans.
hours of my
This is an
inauguration,
American
I
president
will
right
sign
here.
an executive order banning any federal department or agency from colluding with any organization, business, or person to censor, limit, categorize, or impede the lawful speech of American citizens. I will then ban federal money from being used to label domestic speech as mis or disinformation. And I will begin the process of identifying and firing every federal bureaucrat who has engaged in domestic censorship.
They should go to prison.
Directly or indirectly, whether they are the Department of Homeland Security,
They should go to
the
prison
Department
too.
of Health,
Not
Human
just fired.
Services,
Prison.
the FBI, the
For
DOJ,
conspiring against
no matter
America.
who they are. Second, I will order the Department of Justice to investigate all parties involved in the new online censorship regime, which is absolutely destructive and terrible, and to aggressively
Most of those people are connected to the Anti-Defamation League.
prosecute any and all crimes identified. These include possible violations of federal civil rights law, campaign finance laws, federal election law, securities law, and antitrust laws.
Dude, that's just amazing. We finally, after, I mean, it's just my whole life, we finally have an American president. We finally have an American. I think Reagan was like the last American president, but Trump is way better than Reagan. Way better than Reagan. Way better. But the problems were probably different during Reagan's time. They weren't this bad, but this is so American. This is so, it's like, oh my God, we live in America again. I mean, I haven't felt like I've lived in America for decades. It's just like, what is this thing? What is this shit? And now it's like, whoa, America just grabs all the power, just smashing through the enemy and just grabbing the power. And it was a big coalition. It was a big coalition. I don't want to name all the players, but some of them you don't know. Frankly, it started, frankly, it started over on a website called The Daily Stormer with Andrew Anglin. I know nobody wants to talk about that, but that's where this started. That's where we started, because I'm telling you, I was there, and Lucas Gage was there, and Nick Fuentes was there, and we were all there before Alex Jones joined the Trump train. Before Alex Jones joined the Trump train, it was me, and it was Andrew Anglin, and it was a bunch of other people that nobody even knows. I don't even know who most of these people are, but there were millions of us around the world on a website called The Daily Stormer that had all kinds of hilarious memes. It was a hilarious meme website that would just ridicule the entire progressive establishment, however you want to call it. We were just ridiculing the hell out of them. And when Trump came down the escalator, day one, when he announced his presidency, day one, this whole network, you got to understand our situation. This is 2014. This is okay. I started paying attention to that website during the Ukraine Maidan revolt. that's when that website kind of really took off, was during the Ukraine Maidan revolt. And we were all looking at this going, this is bad, because before that before that happened, this is kind of what actually occurred. This is the secret history that you'll never hear about, because no one's ever going to they're not going to tell you this on InfoWars or Joe Rogan or anywhere else, or Dan. No one's going to tell you what happened. I know what happened because I was there. I was part of it. It was part of it, because what are we talking about? We're talking about a right-wing movement. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to hear about this, particularly nobody that won the election. They want to pretend like we don't exist. But what happened was, those of us who are white European people living in America, watching it, living under the Obama, when Obama got elected the first time, it was depressing for me. I could see that this was the end of America. And what did he want to do? He wanted to transform America. And what happened to America? It became transhuman and transsexual and all this other stuff, right? Trans marriage. This is new marriage. That stuff started before Obama, with Al Gore, actually, who wanted to reinvent the American family. But I don't want to talk about all that kind of stuff on this video. I've already talked about it enough. But so I said, this is the end of, how is this even happening? But so, and it took a long time. And so you started to have these groups forming of like, well, we're not all this. We're not worshiping Obama and all this other stuff. We're white people. We're the Americans. We're the Europeans. You really have nothing to do with us. Like when Obama's over giving speeches in Germany, it's like, dude, what are you doing here? We're not you. And so it was definitely a right-wing, fascist, national socialist website that brought together a lot of different groups. And the best part about it was, unlike shitty websites that I was routinely blocked and kicked off of, like Stormfront, for exposing too much information about the federal government. Unlike that, Stormfront, which used to go around saying that 9/11 wasn't done by who, it was done by the Arabs, and we're at war with the Arabs and this kind of nonsense. And Stormfront kicked me off. And I think anyway, we don't talk about Stormfront, but unlike Stormfront, the Daily Stormer was funny. You see, it was funny. It was hilarious. It was hilarious memes. It was hilarious memes. So you had this whole thing of hilarious memes. And Andrew Anglin, he wasn't perfect, because at the beginning he was buying into some of the mainstream CIA propaganda. But he was quickly disabused of it, because we were on there trying to tell him, like, no, dude, don't buy into this thing. That's the CIA pushing ISIS, right? Or that's the CIA doing this. But he was right about the Ukraine thing. Now, why am I talking about that? Before I was on that website, I had already decided that there were those of us in America and those of us in Western Europe and those of us in Russia, because white people live in Russia, white Christian people live in Russia, who were not supporters of the Judeo-communist coup of Trotsky and all that, right? All of us, all the rest of us, the white Christian populations of the world, which exist in America and Europe and Britain and Russia. See, we all have something in common. We all have something. We're racially similar. We're from the same racial origins, and our religion is the same. We're not the same, but we're part of a religious, system that spreads through Europe and into Russia and into Britain and into America. So we all have these. We're all basically the same, different tribes of the same race, and so of course we have ties to those people. So when the Ukraine thing broke out, we see McCain and Obama and Soros. That's when we're like, no. It was the CIA. It was working with neo-Nazi organizations to promote neo-Nazism in Ukraine, to use to attack Russia. This is the old Trotskyite program, right? Trotsky was the leader of the Ukrainians to go attack Russia. This is the same thing they've been doing for like hundreds of years since the time of the Austrian since the time of the Austrian Hungarian whatever, like when Austria was under a monarch, they were trying to do this stuff with Ukraine. It's a long story. I don't want to get into the whole history of it. But anyway, so since then, that was like, we're talking like 2013, okay, 2012, 2013. We were already saying, look, we want an alliance here. Us, the white Christian people of America, with people of Europe, with the people of Britain, with the people of Ireland, with the people of South Africa and Australia and Russia are included in that. And people and then extending to all Christian people, you know, the Greek Orthodox and the and in the Middle East you have the Syrian Orthodox churches. Like these are all part. You know, we accept all this, right? So we don't want a war. We don't want a war with Syria. We don't want a war with all these people. So we identified who was doing it as the usual suspects. So when we saw John McCain and Lindsey Graham and Victoria Noodleman and Obama backing, you know, supposedly our team, our Nazi brothers over there in Ukraine to overthrow the government and start a war with Russia, and we're seeing the CIA and the State Department. Those aren't our friends. Those are the people that are actively trying to kill us here in America and that are undermining the white race around the world, in Australia and in North America and in Canada and in Britain. Like they're the ones killing us. They're the ones flooding us with foreign populations to kill us. So we were already way ahead of this game. But we saw ourselves losing. We saw the Ukrainians making this huge mistake. And we just saw ourselves losing and losing and losing and losing. And like the future looked bleak. And everyone had this idea that we were really going to be destroyed as a people globally, that we were going to get wiped out. We had the Kalergi. Well, that's what happened when what's his name from the British National Party. What's the guy's name? Can't remember his name right now. Anyway, when the guy from the British National Party gave a speech at the European Union Parliament, he was a parliament member. He gave a speech there about the Kalergi Plan. And we're like, boom, whoa, the Kalergi Plan. This explains exactly who the players are, who their names are. We have it all documented so we can say, no, they're really trying to kill us off in the West. They're really trying to get rid of us racially. It's like, it's in other words, we could prove now that the people in charge of the US government in Washington, D.C., and the people in charge of the government in Britain, and the people in charge of the governments of Europe really want to exterminate and racially and ethnically cleanse the European populations by bringing in massive populations of foreign people to kill us. And that's the whole plan. That is the plan. We have it all documented. It's called the Kalergi Plan. And Kalergi was a Freemason who served in the Habsburg government, and he had to flee Austria when Hitler came to power, along with a bunch of communists. So it was who fled Austria? It was and Germany and other places in Europe. Who had to flee? It was communists, and it was the Jewish mafia, and it was the Freemasons like Kalergi, who were connected to the Habsburg government. Where did they go? They went to New York. So we had, and he wrote this. These are all documented. He was sponsored by the Rothschilds. I also have the Masonic. I have a Masonic document, which lay out the whole European program for Europe, what's called the European Union, how this is an invention of the Freemasons, and how this is all written out by Kalergi, and how they're going to set up this new system by getting rid of the white European populations and replace it with foreign populations, so that they will prop up this new government. That's the whole plan. So once we had this, before Trump announced, we had the Kalergi program. This was being distributed across the internet like the gospel. I mean, it was like spreading the New Testament was in the time of Christ, right? It's like we were just hitting this thing hard. It was going everywhere. Like, show people this. And it was just like taking off like wildfire, spreading like wildfire across the internet. Everyone was finding out about the Kalergi plan because now they could document and point to, you know, we had them red-handed. We had the smoking gun, right? Here's what they're doing to you. Here's what they want to do to your government. Here's what they want to do to your people. It's a crime. It's a crime to ethnically cleanse populations. That is a crime. So we had them caught. We could say it's not that they're just trying to sympathize or be liberal, like, because before the argument was, well, they're just liberal and they just want to help they want to help everybody. No, it's not that they're liberal. It's not that they want to help everyone. They want to use these other populations to kill you. So now we had it all on the record. So we were spreading the information. So the information was spreading out, but it still looked bleak because we were still losing politically. And so when Trump came down the escalator and said he was going to reverse the immigration situation, everyone just jumped on that and said, this is our guy. Backed him 100%. So what Trump's had when he first came down that escalator was millions of people already organized around the world in the millions on the internet, with communication channels already set up around the internet, all over Europe and all over Britain and all over everywhere. Australia, Europe, it was just everywhere, North America. All the channels were upset. So as soon as he came on, boom, he had that support. He had that support base that he didn't even know existed. Nobody knew it existed. Nobody really knew the extent to which it existed, because we'd built it over years. Before that, I mean, it took us 10 years to set up all these channels of just talking to people on the internet. So when he walked in, he just had this huge invisible empire. The invisible empire that nobody saw was out there working for him behind the scenes, right? So he stepped into that. And so these people, what were we already doing? We were making memes. We were already making the memes. The memes, we were already making memes before Trump. We were already making memes that were hilarious and exposed all kinds of stuff and spreading them all over the place. They were just going out all over the place. So Trump walked into this. We knew what the Kalergi plan. So everybody already knew the Kalergi plan, and now they have a guy that they can push that's going to reverse this stuff for all of us. So he was pushed hard. And in the beginning, that's what I'm telling you. This is before Alex Jones jumped on board. Because when Trump announced, remember, Trump was on The View, and everyone loved Trump. The ladies on The View were like, oh, it's Donald Trump. We love you. Why? Because they thought, like Alex Jones thought, that he was there to be a spoiler for Jeb Bush. And Alex Jones is backing Rand Paul at the time. Oh, let's back Rand Paul. Let's go libertarianism. We weren't backing Rand Paul. And we didn't care if Jeb Bush lost. We didn't care if Jeb Bush lost and Hillary became the president, because we knew it didn't matter anyway, because we were all going to die. If Jeb Bush was the president, we're all going to die. If Hillary is the president, we're all going to die. So it was like a Hail Mary. We're just going to go Trump all the way. And we're just, because he's out there communicating the things he's saying, which is exactly what we want said on that on that major stage, the world stage. That's our guy. That's our guy. So now, when it comes to the British National Party, who took out the British National Party? It was the UKIP. UKIP came in. Remember, that's when UKIP came in and said, well, we'll take these votes away from the British National Party and bring them into UKIP. It was like the Reform Party. right? To keep it from moving too far to the right. So that's what UKIP did. They moved right in, filled that because they could see what was happening. So UKIP came in, took out the British National Party, took the votes from the British National Party, and helped to end EU membership in Britain, but didn't stop all the other garbage. So you look at London now; it's basically like a third world hellhole, right? And the British race has been ethnically cleansed, which is the whole program. So that's really what UKIP did, is they prevented real change, which was the British National Party. And that's kind of what we're worried about and afraid of, with Trump being associated with the guy from Palantir, Peter Thiel, who is a homosexual, weird person. I'm just saying he's weird. He just seems weird. His personality is weird. He just seems very strange. He's really involved in that tech thing, and he bragged about taking out right-wing movements in Europe, which is, of course, us. So now he's all involved in the Trump thing, which is bad. But we've still made huge inroads and beachheads that we have to be proud of for doing, because we pushed this whole thing from the beginning. They're trying to curb it with people like Peter Thiel and what's his face, J.D. Vance, of course, is there to curb, bring it back to the middle. Bring it back to the middle. We don't want to go too far to the right. Let's curb it. And that's what Peter Thiel and J.D. Vance are, right? They're there to act as a barrier to the actual people that actually know what's happening and want to correct it 100% and reverse all the damage that they've done, all the programs of racial extermination against us, because that's what it is. That's what it's always been. You don't believe me? Read "Germany Must Perish" by Theodor Kaufman. Is that his name? Kaufman. Read that book. It says that the whole program was to sterilize every living German, not just in Germany, but in America too. Every living German had to be sterilized, according to Kaufman, and everybody thought this was a great idea. He's called a peace activist. A peace activist. He wants to sterilize all the Germans because that's a peaceful thing. Not just the Germans in Germany, all the Germans that ever lived anywhere in the world. That means everyone in Minnesota, in America. Like, that was his plan, and this was a plan that is set called by all the major news. You know, the New York Times and the Chicago Tribune and the Washington Post said that was a great idea. That's what they said. Riveting. Anyway, we have this information. That's why we're not qualifying our statements. That's not we're not trying to curb our enthusiasm. That's why J.D. Vance and Peter Thiel are there, to curb it. Either they don't know about it or they don't care. See, that's the difference. But anyway, what I'm saying is, this is before Alex Jones got on the bandwagon. And he got on relatively soon after that. Once he saw that Trump was real and not just there to be a spoiler for Jeb Bush, but who cares if he's a spoiler for Jeb? That was the whole point. Like, Alex Jones was like, Trump's just a spoiler for Jeb Bush. He's just there to help Hillary. Who cares, bro? This is war. This is war. We've divorced ourselves from this thing, right? We don't care which one of these idiots we're going to fight next. They're both our enemy. Jeb Bush was our enemy. Hillary Clinton was our enemy. What difference does it make at this point? What difference does it make? At this point, what difference does it make, Alex? Right? That's what we were saying. And there were more of us than there were of him, actually, at the time. So he saw that this thing was real, and he saw that President Trump was real. That Trump really meant what he was saying, and that he really intended to win, and that he was going to put everything into it. And so Alex Jones like had a realization, like, oh, I see, libertarianism actually doesn't work and is totally stupid and is going to get us all killed. That's what I was gonna mention. Kalergi. Kalergi is what you call Austrian economics, which is the Mises Institute. You go back and you look at groups like the Hillsdale College, right? They're always there to basically just talk about libertarianism and accomplish nothing. Why? Because that all came out of the Mises Kalergi thing. See, there's two sides to the global enemy. What do you call the global system that we have? One is the hardcore communism of Antifa, BLM, just hardcore left-wing fascism, you could call it, right? Communist, left-wing communist fascism. And then the other side of that same group, because this helps push everything in that direction of total global tyranny and despotism, is the Mises Institute and Hillsdale College that says we don't need to be involved in government. Oh, we don't need a government. We just need everything to be private. Everything should be private. We don't want to nobody wants to be in charge of anything. You see, we don't need to be in charge of anything. That's what the left wants to do. So what happens when you're not in charge of anything? You just hand them all the power. That was a very sophisticated and insidious program of brainwashing. Everyone to become libertarian and not take charge of anything, and let's all move out into the woods, and we'll just live in the woods, and we'll just let the Democrats run everything because they're a bunch of communists. So that, that's just what they do, and we don't do that. We live in the woods, and that's all, and we just go out there and we just don't do anything, and no one hears from us again. See, that's libertarianism. That's Hillsdale College, who are directly connected to Kalergi and the Mises Institute. Directly. Like, no, it doesn't get any more direct. That's why they're anti-Nazis. The Nazis were bad, and they're just like the leftists, who are a bunch of communists, and they want to control the government, but not us. We don't want to control anything. And we don't care about race, and we don't care about culture, and we don't care about anything because we're all just a bunch of individuals. And individuals. See, the Kalergi plan is about the libertarianism angle is you're just an individual, you see? And so you could be replaced by any other individual because it doesn't even matter because there is no culture. And then on the left side, it says that race doesn't matter because we're all one race and we all need to be communist despots and kill off anyone who opposes us. You see? So either way you go, you get one mass of hardcore anti-racist dictators. And then on the other side, you get a bunch of mixed race individuals who don't care about controlling anything. It's perfect. It's the perfect system for the enemy. So our whole thing was different. It's like, no, we are a race. We want to have our own government. We want to have political power. We want to be able to make laws and protect ourselves using force using state force. We want to perpetuate our lives. We want to perpetuate our cultures. We have various cultures in Europe, the English, the French, the Germanic, and into Russia and into different parts of the world, Christian countries around the world. Like, we want political power. We want political force. We want state power. This is the thing that people like Seth Dillon over at the Babylon Bee or whatever it is hate. They're calling this the woke right, that we want political power. They don't want us to have political power. They want everything to maintain the status quo of drifting towards individualism and racelessness and culturelessness and a culture of corporate money interest, that the exact garbage you see every day on television, where it's everything's like there's no culture. In other words, in order to have a culture, there has to be some kind of racial continuity. And it doesn't matter where it could be. The Korean culture, it could be the Chinese culture, it could be the Syrian culture, which is Christian originally, because they had a language, the Aramaic language. See, that's the kind of stuff we like. And that's the stuff Seth Dillon would call the woke right, because he's part of this enemy system. even though his website's funny, they make fun of the left, but really, he's not. He's still part of that. There is a. It's called the center right. See, so the established order of the after the World War II whole system was set up through NATO and the whole thing was a center left, center right. Everything else is going to be considered something that has to be destroyed by the establishment. That's why they tried to destroy Donald Trump. That's why they try to throw everybody in jail. And that's why you've got people like Seth Dillon or these other moderate center right. See, it's people like even like Tucker Carlson is there to curb the right-wing movement. Peter Thiel was there to curb and stop the right-wing movement. The UKIP party came in to curb the right wing, always to cut us off and take away our power and then side with the left. Take away our power, side with the left. Take away our power, side with the left. Always. That's what Ben Shapiro does. That's what Tucker Carlson will do. That's what Joe Rogan's there to do. That's what they're all there to do. So I'm sorry to tell you. And you may like those people. I like them too. That's the whole point. I like them too. I like Tucker Carlson. Joe Rogan, I don't respect because he promotes dangerous hallucinogenic CIA drugs that cause mental illness and are really bad for people. And he's an idiot because he is a humanist and he thinks that human intelligence came from eating, hallucinogenic drugs, which is stupid. Human intelligence comes from theos. Human intelligence comes from theos, which is God. And the mind of God is the mind of man in its highest state. When a man's degraded, it's not the mind of God. But the whole objective of organizations like Christianity and systems like Christianity is to evolve human beings back towards God, towards having the logos, the mind of God. That was the whole point. You got your intelligence from theos, is the source of intelligence. Not you were a monkey and you ate you ate some toxin that caused you to hallucinate. No, Joe Rogan. This is all this humanist Jesuit CIA garbage culture that actually destroyed Western civilization. But I don't want to go into that. I need to go to work. That's what I need to do. I know it's Saturday, but I've got some work to do. So thanks for listening and have a great weekend, and we will talk again.